Hello, and welcome back to Half-Life Alyx. Um, Horrible thing has happened. I forgot to hit record on the last episode, so we will be continuing from here. I I'm upset, but I have an opportunity to re-record this episode right away after this happened, and I feel a burning desire to immediately remedy my mistake. But there might be a feeling that I'm rushing or that I'm maybe pushing through a little bit too hard, and that feeling will be completely justified because uh, simply because that's exactly the case. Well, not exactly the case. I just like I want to fix my mistake, and I want to do it very strongly. So this is a room full of explosives, and the easiest solution to dealing with this room is to just um, um, disarm everything over here, which is probably easier said than done, because there is a lot of mine over here, a lot of mines over here, but easy does it. These are like the worst because I have to rotate my hand like this. You probably don't see it because I'm crawling down. I'm physically crouched because I'm very much immersed in a virtual space. Now we have these two. Let's do it in the same manner. And then this one. And practically we are doing that for the simple reason that there is a bunch of resin lying down over here. Now then, with that amount of resin secured, we'll be going down here. We will need some of the propane tanks. Not quite. Well, that still works. Wait. Where did you go? And we will need to feed these tanks. Oh. To our favorite dudes. The barnacles. Let's see. What? Yep. Yep. And that's the distillery that we're coming across. Maybe I should not rush it that much. No, you're dead.
We can take a shortcut through that building.
Okay, I don't see a way into this building, so I'm gonna look around. What is this place anyway?
It's a distillery. They made vodka and things like that.
Vodka good?
Oh, God, no.
Russell doesn't like vodka. Got it.
Well, I never said that.
But it's not good?
It's poison.
But...
But I love it. Everyone loves it.
Okay, that's all very confusing. Let me figure out how to get in, and then I'll find you stuff.
Wonderful if you could, actually, yes.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to say over here is that I'm not sure how old is Alyx, or how was she brought up, or what she had available during growing up, that she has no idea that vodka is bad, or she does not seem to know anything about alcohol.
For our teleport and continuous locomotion modes, we provide corresponding ladder climbing methods. By default, player using teleport locomotion can target a ladder and after a short timer, get teleported to the top or the bottom, depending on where they started. The timer was necessary to ensure that players were intentionally using the ladder. We didn't want them to unintentionally target the ladder and become disoriented when they found themselves at the other end. Players using continuous locomotion can directly grab ladders to climb up or down. In this mode, they can grab a ladder rung and move their hand down to raise their body, or move their hand up to lower it. This allows players to move up or down the ladder rung by rung in a natural way. This mode turned out to be so popular that we added it as an option even for players using teleport locomotion. As it happens, most of the ladders in our game do not extend very far beyond the upper landing area. This made dismounting the top of a ladder challenging for players using continuous ladder climbing, since there's very little ladder to grab onto above the landing area. To solve this, we detect when the player stops holding the ladder with both hands and automatically teleport them to either the top or the bottom, based on the direction they were climbing. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of explicit ladder training in the game, so some players are surprised by this teleport behavior if they accidentally let go with both hands while climbing. Nevertheless, this was a better alternative to leaving the players hanging or forcing them to fall down if they let go with both hands, especially since some of our ladders are rather long and it would be tedious to have to reclimb just because a player happened to let go shortly before reaching the top.
The interesting thing about these puzzles is that you can seemingly move any marker around. So if you happen to draw a lot of attention on one of the markers, you can always refer to just the other one.
Something's back! I got the drone up and running again. Ignore that. We'll meet you outside. It looks as if there are combined barricades up ahead. They're stopping anyone from getting any closer to the vault.
Okay, so what do you think?
Make your way into the distillery and see where it takes you. With my drone back online, we've finally got the... Oh, no! You're kidding me!
of cells.
It's nice to know when stuff will happen. I will tell you that much. Where was this dude? Was it this guy? The battery goes here. That was an insanely risky move. And one can even say that it was outright reckless. And one would be absolutely correct. But as I said, I feel like pushing it as hard as I can to recover from to recover all the lost progress. And I know that this is I realize logically that this is probably not the most responsible behavior, that it might compromise on quality, but the thing about burning desire is that you do not deal with it in terms of logic, it just is there. And unfortunately logic also tells me that I have an opportunity to re-record an episode, so I'll be going with it. Okay, laser sight.
Wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of that.
Oh, I forgot to open this thing. So sorry. Feel like this is a little bit faster than trying to walk to stuff. Let's see, we need the green wire over here, so... Yep. After the green wire we can go over here and restore this thing. Yep. Shove your hand into the broken glass, because that's our idea of having fun. Yep. This should go all the way up. Yeah, maybe like this. And then we go to the distillery. Alright, let's give it a try. Let me quickly double check that we are recording everything. Seems to be that way. And there will be a lot of diaries over here.
Does alcohol go bad?
It only improves. It's all good, Alyx.
Russell, you're breaking up.
The vodka is good, Alyx. The vodka is good.
Some of our earliest experiments on the project involved placing old Half-Life 2 models in a level and walking around them in VR. These included static models of enemies, like Combine soldiers or zombies. We found that players really enjoyed being able to inspect these models, because VR let them get much closer than they'd been able to in the past. Players reported getting a sense of the true size of the characters, and would often point out details that they had never noticed before, even though they had seen these models many times throughout Half-Life 2. These reactions led us to the idea of creating an enemy that took advantage of that experience, one that required players to spend long periods of time in close physical proximity to it. But enemies typically don't let the player get near them without attacking, so we felt it made fictional sense for this enemy to be blind, and to feature non-combat gameplay as its focus. Early experiments with guiding a blind creature using sounds were immediately interesting, and gave us a way to create scenarios unique to the product. Thus, the concept for Jeff, known as the blind zombie internally, was born.
The Zen flora you see on the wall here, which we refer to as Zen ears for obvious reasons, animate in reaction to the same sounds as Jeff. Early in development, we would observe situations where playtesters would fail to notice Jeff becoming enraged by a sound. If the player died as a result, they felt frustrated and wronged. We worked to make Jeff's animations and sounds communicate his level of aggression to the player as clearly as possible. But if players weren't looking at Jeff, they could still be caught unaware. Adding these Zen ear growths to the environment was a way for us to help players be more aware of Jeff's reactions to sound. The Zen ears work as an extra layer of visual feedback for Jeff's behavioral state, one that lives in the environment instead of on Jeff himself.
I'm trying to remember location of every resin that I picked up, or every resource in general. I know that when I finished an episode at a certain moment, I had 21 resin with me. So that would be an interesting challenge.
Alyx, come in, Alyx. Alyx? Oh, there you are, there you are.
There's no straight shot to the vault. I'm gonna head inside and find a way out.
Yeah. We have Yeah, the dude on L. Liam?
Keep your tongue to yourself and I don't shoot you in
Alyx, you're never gonna believe.
Russ? Oh,
Right from the beginning of development, we intended to feature a variety of visually distinct Zen flora and fauna in Half-Life Alyx. But we didn't yet know how these visual elements would be used to craft interesting gameplay. Referred to internally as Zen clams, the Zen plants you would see here were originally built to add visual flavor to the world and were only lightly interactive. They would track the player's head and hands and would close tight if the player got too close. When we began working on Jeff, we wanted to find surprising new ways to use sound as a core gameplay mechanic. In particular, we wanted to make players wary of the environment around them. We realized we could use the Zen clams as a type of noise hazard by having them repeatedly snap open and shut when approached by the player. We had already placed these clams in earlier parts of the game, which meant that players would reach the distillery with an understanding of how they functioned. The introduction of Jeff changed the player's relationship with the Zen clams, as they went from being harmless but annoying to a dangerous hazard that players would need to take care to avoid.
Keep your tongue to yourself and I don't shoot you in it.
Early versions of the distillery explored a variety of methods for subtlety, teaching players how Jeff works without any explicit exposition. Though some of the training techniques were quite successful, anything less than a complete understanding of Jeff's behavior resulted in players bungling their way through this section of the game and having a terrible time doing it. Eventually, we determined that explicit training was necessary, and that's where the character of Larry came in. Larry acts as a gate, delivering critical information about Jeff's behavior before allowing the player to proceed. It's a dense learning environment and a delicate balancing act, ensuring that we deliver the rules of Jeff while still making Larry an interesting character. To spread out the exposition, you'll notice that it's distributed over a few different story beats as Larry first introduces Jeff, then demonstrates Jeff's predictable reaction to a breaking bottle, and finally explains that the player can prevent their own coughing on Zen spores by covering their mouth.
Thanks.
what the hell was that?
Oh, that's Jeff.
Jeff?
Oh, don't worry. He can't see. Here's just fine, though. Got an ear like Mozart.
Who?
All right, now let me help you out. All right, see you on the other side, Greenhorn. And keep your voice down.
I wonder what Larry does in the distillery. I mean, is he here to just like grab some booze? So this is a very interesting ladder. Okay, this time it works. So how did he make his way over there? Hmm?
There he is.
Jeff.
Right, watch this. See, he's totally predictable. But he will rip your arms off if he finds you.
Are you serious? You are serious. But no, there is like a little tiger. I was brooding that I was unable to find any respirators. Like there were some in the beginning of the game. Then I lost it somewhere.
Hey, those things are nasty. You gotta cover your mouth.
Got it. Thanks.
Hey, I almost forgot. What's your name?
Alyx. Alyx Vance.
Hey, Alex, I'm Larry. Nice to meet you. Try not to get killed. Nice helmet, by the way.
Yes, and he also comments on the helmet. One interesting thing that I probably need to mention is that I'm not getting tripped over jumping from the height if I am standing still. But if I am crouching, then things are getting very trippy. Excuse me? Ah, that is how I end up in a different position to a camera. It's related to crouching.
A core element of both the environment and Jeff himself are the Zen plants seen here spewing toxic gas that makes the player cough. These were not created to be merely ornamental or to support the novel VR interaction of players covering their mouth. They were added specifically to solve a long-standing challenge that we had with illustrating Jeff's personal space. One of the trickier aspects of designing Jeff was striking the right balance between perceived threat and actual threat. Many scenarios in the level forced the player into close proximity with Jeff in order to create tension. We found that these moments could be exciting, but they could also become frustrating when players accidentally got too close to Jeff and were killed unexpectedly. Players reported not understanding how close is too close. We tried a number of solutions, such as adding glowing tentacles to Jeff that acted as a visual representation of the perimeter of his personal space. Touch the tentacles, and you die. Getting the look and feel of these tentacles to a satisfactory place proved challenging, however, and we backed away from the idea. Another problem we encountered was that a subset of our players quickly became comfortable around Jeff once they became adept at keeping their distance from him and avoiding sources of noise. For these players, dealing with Jeff felt trivial. He simply didn't feel like a threat to them. We discussed a variety of potential solutions to these problems, even wacky concepts, such as giving Jeff the ability to teleport to sources of noise. But it was difficult to come up with ideas that didn't feel like we were giving Jeff the ability to cheat. Eventually, we came up with the idea of having the player cough. This was appealing, as it gave us a way to make the player themselves a source of noise, thus causing Jeff to pursue them. We were also interested in making the environment more dangerous generally, and so our first experiments with coughing involved littering the level with Zen plants spewing toxic gas. Initial tests showed a lot of promise. Players now felt like Jeff was a dangerous pursuer, and they must carefully observe the environment to avoid the gas. We observed that players had a natural instinct to cover their mouth with their hand to suppress their cough. This was an affordance that VR with tracked hand controllers supported very naturally, so we implemented this mechanic right away. This still left us with the problem of players being unsure of how close they could safely get to Jeff. We realized that the earlier experiment of adding tentacles to Jeff could be replaced with a much simpler approach of attaching a toxic cloud directly to him. There were multiple benefits to this. First, it gave players visual feedback for how far they needed to stay away from Jeff to be safe. Second, it made those times when Jeff did get close all the more tense, with players now needing to commit a hand to covering their mouth. Finally, we didn't need to teach the players anything new. They could carry forward what they had already learned about toxic gas in the environment and apply those lessons to Jeff himself.
One of our major goals in the design of Half-Life Alyx was to reach the widest possible audience. This meant developing for all of the major VR hardware in the market, as well as accommodating different sized play spaces, traversal preferences, and so on. The accessibility option that had the most knock-on effects into the design of the game, from controller bindings, to game logic, to level design, was the support of a single controller mode, for players who don't use two controllers. In this mode, reloading is performed by moving the weapon to the shoulder and pressing a button, much like arcade games which require the player to fire their weapon off-screen to reload. The flashlight was modified to attach to the primary hand, and gas masks were added so that players could muffle their coughs hands-free. Even the gun used in the final Strider battle, with its two-handed aiming and reloading controls, was modified to be operable with one hand.
Even though Larry instructs the player on the basics of how Jeff works, we found that we needed to let players test those rules without having Jeff in their immediate personal space. If we made players first interact with Jeff face-to-face, they often fell to pieces and forgot the rules. They would die over and over again, and their fear of Jeff would quickly turn into frustration and annoyance. This area was created to serve as a training playground, where players can observe Jeff reacting to various sounds while remaining safe from his attacks. It contains many of the elements that are encountered throughout the rest of the level, including some falling bottles, a padlock that needs to be shot, and various types of Zen plants. Jeff remains close enough to feel threatening, but he cannot attack the player. Players can spend as much time here as they need to, and move on when they feel like they've got a good grip on how Jeff works.
That's Jeff, everybody. Yep, you can see how this guy just falls apart. So left or right? Choose a direction. I got too cocky. Understandable.
Player. Players can spend as much time here as they need to, and move on when they feel like they've got a good grip on how Jeff works.
As we refined Jeff's behavior and visual design, we thought a lot about how we wanted players to feel about him. The goal was to have playtesters describe Jeff with words such as menacing, threatening, deadly, and for that reason it became important that players not survive if they got too close to Jeff. So we decided that his attack should result in instant death. This would teach players unambiguously that Jeff was too dangerous to trifle with, but it left us with the challenge of teaching this to players without necessarily killing them. The approach we took was to give the player opportunities to witness Jeff attack and kill other characters. Early versions of the level included scenarios where Jeff and the player would encounter zombies and combine soldiers. The player could attack these enemies, or use sound to lure Jeff into place so that he could pummel them with his massive arms. This gave players an opportunity to witness Jeff's power and his method of attack without dying at his hands themselves. Unfortunately, this outcome wasn't guaranteed, as some players would opt to kill those enemies themselves, and having these other characters present was also quite expensive in terms of animation, sound, and level content. We were already grappling with the challenge of keeping this level well-paced and within scope, and so we cut these sections. But this still left us with the original problem of how to demonstrate Jeff's ability to kill without killing the player. We chose to address this by adding beats to existing animated sequences. For example, when the player opens this two-handed roller door, we added a headcrab for Jeff to munch on in full view of the player. We also added a similar beat to the later elevator ride, with Jeff smashing a headcrab against a wall before melting it down with acid.
Jeff's character design went through several significant revisions over the course of development. Just by looking at him, we wanted players to understand certain things about the character. Our first priority was to communicate his blindness. Second, we wanted the character to feel physically imposing. After all, the entire concept of Jeff had grown out of our observation that just being close to a character in VR could make for a powerful experience. Finally, we wanted players to understand the blind zombie's behavioural state at a glance. Is he feeling angry? Did he just hear something and is feeling curious? And so on. The first design that we modelled and animated was a sort of combine worker robot. The robot's face featured a holographic display that could flip between different icons that represented its state. A large piece of rebar jutted out of the back of the robot's head, sparking electricity and spewing smoke. This was meant to demonstrate that its visual sensors were impaired, making it blind. We made the robot tall and hulking. It looked heavy, unpredictable and dangerous. However, player reactions to this robotic design showed that it had problems. Players would initially focus on the head's holographic display. Parsing the face and understanding the meaning of the icons proved too challenging for players, and even worse, this element distracted from the rebar poking through the robot's head and their understanding that it was blind. Players found the robot imposing, but we weren't getting the deeply visceral reaction of fear that was desired. A trip back to the drawing board landed us with the more organic character you see in front of you. Drawing inspiration from the idea of coal miners succumbing to the black lung, we focused on the concept of a member of the Combine's Zen cleanup crew that had succumbed to the Zen infection. This gave us the visceral reaction from players which we were looking for. A human face is still visible, but the eyes are clearly decayed, communicating blindness. The organic nature of this design allowed us to lean more heavily on audio to feed back the behavioural state, with animalistic grunts and roars that came to include more human-sounding elements over time.
Not sure if I can distinguish any eyes on Good Buddy Jeff. I'm not sure I can distinguish a lot of face in general over there. There is head, you can see the face, yes, but I'm not facing Jeff right here.
Toner puzzles are a useful design tool, since they force players to move around the environment and also occupy their primary hand via use of the multi-tool. In this area, the player has to aim their flashlight to navigate, point their offhand to teleport, cover their mouth to prevent coughing, follow wires with the multi-tool, and potentially pull bottles with their gravity gloves. The player has to make trade-offs as they proceed, since their two hands are overcommitted by design. One-handed players are even more overwhelmed by these many tasks. This is why we littered the distillery with gas masks the player can attach to their mouth so they won't have to use a hand to muffle their cough. This toner puzzle went through several revisions, many of which left Jeff free to roam while players worked on the puzzle. But this resulted in players having to juggle too many elements at once, and their fear of Jeff quickly turned into frustration. The solution was to keep Jeff locked up while players solved the puzzle, with his distant roars maintaining a level of tension. We were then left with the problem of how to release Jeff so the level could continue. Initial ideas involved having Jeff break out from the freezer on his own when the puzzle was complete, but this felt contrived and scripted compared to having the player free Jeff from the freezer. The toner puzzle mechanic gave us a logical solution to this problem, with the added benefit of creating a moment of high tension for the player when they realize they're going to have to open the freezer door and release Jeff in order to proceed.
I mean, that should work.
Many of our ideas for Jeff involved coming up with plausible ways to force Jeff and the player to occupy an enclosed space at the same time. An elevator ride was on the table from the beginning, but we were unsure of how successful it would be in execution. There was also a concern that such a sequence could be technically expensive to pull off. Our first prototype was extremely rudimentary. Players would get into an elevator with Jeff, the ride would last around 30 seconds, and then Jeff and the player would exit. There was no complicated level scripting, no bespoke animations for Jeff, and no special audio or lighting treatment. Despite the relative lack of polish, players had a strong positive reaction to the sequence, even naming it a highlight of the game when we ran company-wide playtests. This convinced us that it was worth putting more work into the elevator ride to make it something really special. In the end, a lot of different disciplines came together to create the final sequence, which combines sound, animation, scripted lighting, and careful choreography of Jeff's movements and the player's actions.
Yep. That's Jeff. He is not the happiest guy on earth. He should rather soon move a little bit further. Yep. So we can go over here. Now you're kinda trying to avoid Jeff and escape from him. But then, cheeky
Most of the
headcrab.
time, the noises that attract Jeff are created by the player, who is either actively trying to lure him to a new location, or has perhaps made a noisy mistake that could have been avoided. The key point being that the player feels some amount of responsibility for the noises being made. The goal of the upcoming hallway was to flip that idea on its head, if only for a moment. Like a misbehaving pet, this cheeky headcrab appears to surprise and infuriate the player, clumsily knocking over a series of bottles before escaping into a vent. Classic headcrab nonsense. We were surprised to find that many players wanted to check and see if the headcrab had indeed escaped. They would climb up onto the boxes and crane their head up into the vents. This prompted the idea of adding a small Easter egg to reward those players. Try it, and you'll find that the cheeky crab has indeed escaped to be annoying another day. The cost of adding these sorts of secrets needs to be weighed against the potential for players to actually discover them. In this case, our playtest observations made the cost appear worth it, in particular for the impact it would have in making the world feel more real. A full reality where living creatures go about their lives even if the player isn't there to witness them.
And yes, you might have glimpsed that correctly, but that headcrab took a bottle of vodka with him. Because he is indeed that cheeky. Right, we're still crawling through the vents.
Alyx, coming in. Hey, Alyx. Oh, there you are. Can you hear me?
More or less. You're breaking up.
I think you're still in the distillery.
I made a friend named Jeff.
Well, that's great. We can take all the help we can get.
Yeah, we're not really close.
Listen, there should be a big tunnel-sized plug in the floor there somewhere. That's gonna be...
The tunnel out of here?
Correct. You get it open, I'll figure out where it leads.
So, in almost the same time, we almost reached the same place, which is good, and we're for now only one resin away from the previous result. And this one resin is over there.
Since the entire premise of Jeff hinged on keeping Jeff and the player in close proximity to each other, the distillery map was constructed as a series of chambers connected by one-way transitions. Early on, we used two techniques in concert to keep Jeff and the player together throughout the level. First, each new area was gated with a special locked door. These took the form of impenetrable Zen membranes that only Jeff could tear through. The player would lure Jeff to the membrane using sound, and Jeff would break it open so that both Jeff and the player could proceed. We had always had a goal of having players describe Jeff in adversarial terms, as a constant pursuer or a thorn in their side. The problem with the Zen membrane concept was that it led to players describing Jeff as a useful tool, or worse, an angry co-op partner, rather than something they feared. Another way that we would keep Jeff and the player together was via the use of one-way drops. Jeff would fall off catwalks, platforms, and ladders into each new area. These drops functioned as intended, but just like the Zen membranes, elicited an undesirable reaction from players, especially when repeated multiple times. Watching Jeff do these pratfalls left players feeling like he was less dangerous. They felt sorry for him, and even laughed at him. Eventually, we realized that we could use combined force fields, which the player cannot pass through, as a way to create one-way doors. These force fields allowed Jeff to move through them, but required the player to follow via another one-way path. This allowed us to build thresholds where Jeff and the player could both move forward while eliminating the awkwardness of the Zen membranes and avoiding the repeated falls that had previously made Jeff look so clumsy. Combined force fields also had a few other benefits. For one, they gave Jeff a convenient way to take a backstage route that is inaccessible to the player, like the one at the bottom of this ladder. They also tied in nicely with Jeff's fictional background as a former member of the Combine Zen cleanup crew.
Creating an experience with such a heavy focus on audio presented some unique design problems. The primary challenge was determining which sounds Jeff should be able to hear and making sure that players understood the rules. Half-Life Alyx contains a vast array of physics objects. However, through playtesting we found it best to use only a small set of them in the distillery. We needed to pay close attention to each object that we did include, particularly to audio design for collisions between the object and the various surface types used in the distillery. It was important that what players heard matched their expectations for how Jeff would react. In early testing, we would find individual cases where players would say things like, "I don't know why Jeff got angry," or "I would have expected that noise to attract Jeff." Over time, we identified these cases of confusion and addressed them one by one. It was vital that players always be able to identify the cause and effect of a noise that might attract Jeff. Failing this meant players were left feeling like Jeff acted randomly and they'd grow frustrated. Some experiments failed in this area. At one point, parts of the level were littered with piles of broken glass that would make noise if the player walked or teleported over them. Few players would notice the broken glass and were then surprised when Jeff attacked, so this concept was cut to avoid confusion. We had to be wary of the opposite case too, where players would expect purely aesthetic elements to present a noise hazard. For example, at one point we had placed shallow pools of water seeping in among the floor tiles. It looked really cool, but it confused some of our playtesters who thought that the sound of their footsteps splashing through these puddles would be audible to Jeff, even though we never intended that to be the case.
Catch a bottle. There is so much resin and resources in general in these places. Also, I'm happy that I finally found the masks. Now I can see what you mean by saying that you littered the area with masks. Because yes, you absolutely did. Okay, there is just a syringe, and we can live without it. That, however, is nice addition. There are a few batteries that are placed okay, at least Jeff. Yeah, I'm confident that this might be somewhat mutual feeling. Oh, Christ almighty, okay, that was scary. You know, when I was finishing my original recording of this episode, I went on a rant that I do not feel exactly scared by the game. That somehow something is like that. I was telling how the game still feels detached, right? that I would still understand that all of this is a game and none of the headcrabs or other stuff can harm me. This is all imaginary, right? And this is true.
That's it.
So when the headcrabs are attacking me, I do not feel like they actually can latch to my face. I realize that this is all a game. It's all in the goggles. Well, that was a lucky one. Yeah, so I know that these guys are gonna get very upset when I will try to do my stuff. Okay, there is Jeff. Did I not see a thing over here? No, I saw a reflection, but it was not the thing that I was looking for. What? Well, that makes no sense. Jeff, buddy. He will go away on his own. Let's give him some time. Oh, really? Oh, I'm close enough to see your face. Or what used to be your face. Ew. I do not envy you, man. Not here. Really, I'm not here. Anything else over there? I'm wondering how does one supposed to yank these things out? Maybe like this. Let me hide. And let's try that again, shall we? Alright, how about we leave Jeff be? Oh. Now.
And there we go.
Indeed. Now we have all the necessary batteries and we can proceed. Surely there will not be any complications to that, right?
What the hell is that?
That's Jeff. Keep your voice down.
Oh, okay. Right, I don't like that.
Figuring out how to end the player's journey through the distillery involved a lot of discussion about how players would ultimately end up feeling about Jeff. Observing playtests told us that most players simply wanted him dead, usually from the moment they met him, but there were some who felt kind of sorry for him and didn't necessarily want to see him killed. Our first version of the ending involved the player's actions unintentionally resulting in Jeff being attacked and dragged away by antlions. Part of the goal was to demonstrate that the antlions are even more powerful than Jeff, to amp up the tension just before players have to square off against antlions themselves. This ending left players feeling a little empty. They felt detached from Jeff's demise and wanted to be more directly involved. Dark stuff, to be sure. Plus, we weren't really servicing those players who felt sorry for Jeff and didn't necessarily want to see him killed. There were other problems too. The antlion attack felt random to many players, which reduced its impact. And because Jeff presumably died off-screen, players were left without a sense of closure. This prevented players from being able to switch gears and settle in for their encounter with the antlions. The trash compactor was a solution to these problems. It gave players the opportunity to decide Jeff's fate and be left with a sense of closure whether they decided to squash him or just leave him imprisoned. Even so, it has to be admitted that most players seem to crush Jeff with zero hesitation. Monsters.
Monsters? Excuse me, have you seen this guy? Like, please tell me if there is any way back for it. Because right now it's highly aggressive creature. Like, there is no way you can redeem it. There is no way you can get the Combine Soldier back there. And even then, it's a Combine Soldier. So, yeah. Count me in. I mean, it's absolutely cruel. I don't argue. There are probably some nicer ways to dispatch the guy.
Oh my god, Jeff, are you okay?
The fact that his clothes and shoes remain, this is, yeah, quite interesting. The gloating comment from Alyx, I'm not sure how to, what should I think about that? She did say that she hates him, but to gloat like this? I'm not sure about that. Gloating feels unnecessary. Yep. Saw the glow and immediately thought like there must be a resin in that crate down there.
Whoa! What did you do to Jeff?
Yeah, I trapped Jeff in a trash compactor. And then I crushed him.
God damn! Well, I hope you came across some of the good stuff. See you around.
Okay, the coast is clear. Time to get that plug open so we can get through those tunnels.
That is a plug indeed.
That tunnel heads to the vault.
Great. Also, little heads up. I think the tunnel is full of antlions. Just in case I cut out permanently.
Antlions.
Yeah, you know, aliens with stabby legs.
Oh, yes, and very small, like ants.
No.
Something like that.
Like tiny little lions.
Nope.
No, that's not them. These ones are pretty dangerous.
Right, well, whatever they are, they're down that tunnel.
Yep. Off I go.
Huh. And then you walked in. with ant lines supposedly everywhere. Surprisingly, I do not remember the end line section well, or rather, I do not remember the end section well. So, starting from here, my memory is very hazy. So it's either that we do not have that much stuff left, or I simply forgot about it or stopped paying attention for some reason, which will not be the case this time. Let us load the map. And before we make any step further, we will save the captivity. Hopefully it is recorded, fingers crossed. And with that, we will be wrapping up this episode. I'm sorry if it is a little bit more chaotic this time. As I said, I felt the need to re-record it right away. I might have been rushing the stuff or pushing the stuff too hard, but I still tried to present all the dev commentary. And yeah, I hope it was more or less on the level of the previous episodes. And yeah, I'm excited to continue further after another break. And with that, thank you for staying with me. I hope you enjoy my company and my gameplay. And if that is the case, then please leave me a like and subscribe to the channel, or otherwise let me know down in the comments what I can improve for you. I hope to see you next time. Have a nice day out there, and bye.